Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, today is the second day in our retreat and second Dhamma talk. May everyone settle down for the talk and may give the consent with 3 times sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Katame tayo dhamma bhave tabba tayo samadhi savitakka savichara samadhi ti. Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, I am repeating the same topic as yesterday, which I quoted from the Dasuththara Sutta. This is the last one in the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses, and whereby Venerable Maha is raising a question. Whenever someone is engaged in meditation, or as a full-time meditator, or dedicated meditator, diligent one, which 3 things he or she must develop, he or she must cultivate, he or she must meditate upon. And the answer, tayo samadhi, there are 3 kinds of concentrations. These 3 are the things one must develop or cultivate. To enumerate the first one, it says savitakka savichara samadhi, the kind of concentration, one-pointedness with applying thoughts at the discursive thoughts. Or we can say thinking and pondering. So today we saw in the question and answer session, many try to apply this into one's own meditation, and some got some forward movements, some got some misunderstanding. Anyway, overall encouraging. So I thought of going little in detail to understand how savitakka savichara samadhi is helpful specifically for a beginner. Even if you are not a beginner, so to say, after a disease, or after a kind of a social turmoil, or after a personal mental episode, when you are starting the meditation again, if you happen to again, you have to use the same. So therefore, this savitakka savichara samadhi is a kind of a tool making the ground clearance. And whenever it is not necessary, you may leave it aside. But throughout the meditative life, occasionally you have to use it. Of course, when you are repetitively using the savitakka savichara, your definition along the savitakka, or the applying thoughts, or the thinking, the definition will be evolving chronologically. As well as the savichara, that's pondering and discursive thoughts, is the initial definition. Definitely you may refine it, but some may or the other, somewhere you have to start with. So we are using this literal meaning and leave it open. As and when you practice, your nuances, shades of meanings will be increasing. So don't get wrong notion telling this is a concrete, solid definition, and if you wish, you have to go back to Pali. Savitakka, savichara. And even in Sinhala, translation is not so enlightening. And this applying thoughts and the thinking for the savitakka is not really covering the meaning. As well as savichara, discursive thoughts and the pondering, sometimes misleading. But anyway, we'll start with. The the utility value for this Savitakka Savichara, not only in meditation, but in each and every skillfulness in your life, you have to use it. More than the skillfulness in your life, whenever you are communicating, short to the point, short and sweet, this is the main tool. And therefore you can understand how much people are bewildered when they are communicating idea, how much they are beating on the bush without directly communicating. Because they are vitakka vichara, or applying thoughts and the discursive thoughts are always get mixed up. So therefore what the starting point will completely lost towards the end of the essay. The beginning will not tally with the end, and the end will not tally with the beginning. So therefore ultimately it becomes gossiping. So therefore when and where you master this vitakka vichara, of course you have to you have nothing to talk so much. You can directly, so it will be SMS, the sending short messages, and the purpose will be done. So not only in meditation, but when you are writing your meditative interview reports, it's very, very important. Otherwise, you may be a very efficient, diligent practitioner, but if you can't express yourself, the progress will be hindered because the other party can't help you. Because it is not true to type. So therefore each and everyone has to understand, you have to develop the beginner's mind, and just like learn the second language. Whenever elderly people learn the second language, some people are very skillful, but others has to start it in somewhere else and keep on practice with mistakes, trial and error. Ultimately you develop the fluency. So likewise in the vitakka vichara, understanding in terms of mindfulness is a completely new subject for any person on the earth. Because we are often unmindful. Or often we are not here and now. When and where you are not here and now, and if you try to explain it, you are utterly in a mess. You are utterly bewildered. And when and where you in here and now, at that moment you can't, but later, through your inferential knowledge, or deductive knowledge, or your rationalization, you may try to communicate it, but even then, it is a kind of a deductive knowledge. But there is no other way. Some says, the mind-to-mind relationship, that is to say, telepathic, can happen. When that happens, the vitakka vichara not working in such a manifested way, it is working in such a primordial way, but still the vitakka vichara is there. So therefore, one has to take little time to understand at least the theoretical meaning of vitakka vichara. So I will cite two examples, often you find in the commentary exegesis. And that has been commonly accepted among the Theravada tradition. It says, vitakka is something like you are hitting on a gong, or hitting on a bell. And then vichara is, it is ringing sounds. Once you hit, according to the metal, it creates kind of reverberation, and it's going on. And likewise, hit is like a vitakka, and vichara is the ringing sound or echo according to the metal of the bell or the gong. This is one example. The other one is, imagine a huge, large garden full of flowers, and bees are coming to collect honey, and one bee select one particular flower and go and landing on the flower, that is called vitakka, and it is roaming around and gathering all the honey as well as the pollen is the vichara. You go and land there, and only that particular flower is available for that particular being at that time, and it is roaming around and moving around and accumulating or collecting the honey as well as the or dew or the sweet thing and the pollen. And next, when you go to the next flower, that will become a vitaka, and that flower also going to give. So likewise, lot of bees, lot of flowers. Which bee is going to which flower is the kind of a decisive thing. That is what you call in English adverting. Whenever 1001 objects are there, you have the power of, or your willpower to advert your mind to that particular object. If you are not mindful, you select according to the pleasure principle, most desirable object. Sometimes most repulsive object. Because they are the most prominent, significant thing. So therefore, tomorrow morning, when you are going to remember, you remember the most desirable thing and most repulsive thing. The intermediate one that you adverted, it is not making a memory. That will brush off. Only the extremes remains. That is the nature of unmindful mind. And it's going by extremes. So when you try to be mindful, these extreme desirable or extreme pleasant and unpleasant thing, and later when you are going to note, you may find amidst of this desirable and undesirable, there is a gray area. Usually, unless otherwise you go prepared, you will not notice it. You will not remember it. It will never make any engraining in your mind. They become washed off just like a washable color, washable paint. Only the extremes are remaining, and they are utterly make you frustrated, utterly make you tensed, utterly exhausting. And these are the only thing you remain, you keep, that make the neurosis, and that goes from night to next day morning, and again that night to the next day morning, and according to the Buddhist tradition, from the death of this life to the next life. So all the crux, all the extremes are remaining. Imagine you happen to be mindful and you see, yes, extremes are there, but there's a gray area. Usually, unless otherwise you advert, go prepared, these things won't make the story. Only fabrication happens, storytelling happens with the extremes. That means you are knowingly or unknowingly make irritation, tension, frustration, because middle part, which is the healing area, it is the consoling area, never accounted for. So therefore, when you are meditating and allowing things to happen as and when it happens, sometimes you can see some objects appear very boring, very monotonous, very pale, very sleepy, and you don't feel like energized, you don't feel like motivated, because this is the area the mind get healed, mind get consoled, mind get into the comfort zone. So untrained mind always reject it and make stories, fabrication only with the extremes. So therefore, have an account, keep a bookkeeping. When you are observing, for example, sitting posture, when you are observing, for example, the breath, sometimes the breath is there, you are noting, but it's very boring. Sometimes you see the in-breath and out-breath, one after the other. But it's then what? It is just air. Why should I spend whole my time and adverting to see this just air? So you expect something to happen. You expect the yellow color to appear, green color to appear, brightness to appear, lightness to appear. So whatever arising, is not what you are talking about. You are talking what you expect to happen. So therefore, when you are writing the report, not that you give a clear account what is happening, you write what you wish to see. And this is what throughout the cricket commentaries, throughout all the commentaries, this is what we call Fox News. This is what we call CNN. They manipulate. And ultimately they can completely change the regime. Likewise, whatever the information happens, your twisted mind or your perverted mind select your likings and dislikings, select whatever may be your personality traits, you filter through your habits, you filter through your cultural upbringing, and the Buddha add more your karmic forces. So now, when you are trying to be mindful, understanding the applying thought and the discursive thoughts, you let happen things, let the thing happen as and when it arises, just observe them with non-judgmental way. Observe things in an unassuming way, non-reactional way. So it is a kind of a skillfulness in mindfulness. So at the beginning, whenever you apply your mind to a particular object, it may be desirable or undesirable. It may be gross or subtle. It may be in or out. It may be close or far away. It may be appearing or it may be disappearing. It may be right on under your nose. So how one can explain the undesirable object as and when it happens? How one can explain or just report desirable object as and when it happens? How on the appearing object as and when it happens? How the disappearing object as and when it happens? How when the object is under your very nose, you report? How you explain, report the gross objects? How you explain, you report subtle object, inner object, outer object, close object, far away objects. So when these 11 facets are given, your mind is, if it is untrained, only report gross objects, only report desirable objects, only report inside objects, only report inner objects and under your very nose. So you are losing 6. Your ultimate report is depending upon your likings and dislikings. So when and where the applying thought, Venerable Mahasi said, I do not did as the noting or labeling. Just tell this is the object I noted. It may be your desirable object, what is your primary object, or maybe a secondary object. Never mind. You have to tell this is the object that I am appointing now. And then whether that noting is really aligning with or avenued with, come face to face with your object, may or may not be. For example, when you are walking, you may be called left leg, but the actually right leg is working now. You note as left, but the right leg is what is happening. And when you are noting the right leg, you parrot-like you note, but the left leg is functioning. So later you can understand your label noting and the object is not aligning. And you must have the innocence to indicate it. When I am noting the left, I notice actually the right leg is working. When I try to see in-breath, of course what is happening is out-breath. So that is what you call Bombay looking Calcutta. You look at the Bombay, you see only the Calcutta. So understand it and reporting that mistake is what we call innocence. If you try to hide it, and if you try to make camouflage and make a nice report, ultimately communication is the what suffering. So therefore you must be simple enough to appoint label or apply your thought, mind, label the object, and if you can say, at that moment, I am applying my thoughts, or my vitakka is on sitting posture. And that's the bee came and landed upon the flower. Now you are gathering shapes and the manners. When I sit, I feel the pressure points. I feel symmetrical. Or I feel uncomfortable. I feel not balanced. So these are the honey. These are the pollen you accumulate. You have to just tell it. Don't think that the explaining whatever it is happening going to give more marks to you or more smartness. No, only simply, but where did you apply your mind and what did you comes to know is what you call the pondering or discursive thoughts. So therefore, for that you have to delimit, you have to discreetly understand particular object at a time. That's a great way of wisdom. This is called reductionism. The Buddha is the first person understood this in 6,000 years, 2,500 years ago. If you wish to understand something, reduce and delimit it from the majority and study it. So we have no enough patience. We don't have enough time to allocate our mind to one particular tiny object. Instead we try to gather everything. That is what you call the tanha or the desire. So our Lokohamdra used to say, see there is a huge heap of orange. So if you're going to take everything, you hug it, nothing you can hold it. If you can take one with your hand, that is sure. So out of desire you try to hug everything. Ultimately you are the loser, you won't get even a single fruit. Instead take one. Of course it is, you would have acquired it, everything like you have the desire, but ultimately your effort is useless if you are going to gather everything, but instead taking one. So Venerable Jnanananda, Katukurante, he used to say, imagine there's a huge heap of straw. In a straw there's a one needle. An elephant come and try to pick that needle with his trunk out of this heap of straw. Because the elephant is a very poor eyesight and picking small thing is very difficult. So our mind also like very poor in eyesight if you are not mindful, and it always try for the lion's share. It never ready to go for reductionism. So for the sake of this noble quest, you reduce and one thing at a time, and that done well. And whenever you pick it, then you can see it is not a straw, it's a needle. So you can experience whatever you pick. So this is the way we make it a noble quest. So if I am to still reduce and present in a sitting posture, imagine when we are not mindful. Imagine when we have open eyes, ears are normally open, and nose, tongue, body and the mind. And visual objects are there, sound waves are there, smell is there, taste is there, tactile sensation is there, daydreaming is there. So that is what the worldly being. Then no agenda, mind is jumping from one to the other. So this is the way the non-meditators are living 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, maybe 120 years. Going there, so everywhere, just like a mad monkey. They express about the world, but they have no rights, no qualification, because they never stay in one object for 2 seconds. 2 split seconds, jumping. And they are the people writing novels. They are the people writing long theories, and they are the bloody fools, only see the superficial. Instead, the Buddha says, reduce your understanding your body. That means, limit your understanding to your body above the hair, below your soul, and right round the skin. And when you are reducing, if at all you to be mindful on your body or the posture, you have to forego the rest of the world. That is what we find difficult. Unless otherwise you forego the whole world, the mind will never come and rest. Find peace in your sitting posture. You may go into the worldly matters in terms of the past, or in terms of the future, or in terms of the other places, in terms of the other people. I mean, that was the case before we understand mindfulness, before we put forth our effort. And imagine one moment, you can be aware, I am now within my body, so that so much so, you're not worrying about the past, future, other people and other places. Then there's a kind of experience, whenever you be, just being. There's an experience to say you are not dead. There's a kind of experience to say you are not sleeping. There's a kind of experience to say you are not unconscious. You are conscious. So the moment you can explain, when I sit with your closed eyes or open eyes, if you can feel that I am not a dead, I am not sleeping, I am not unconscious, that very experience is a very universal experience. No one can explain it. No language can explain it. So therefore it's a great challenge. Definitely it's an under the nose experience, but you can't explain it. That means anything here and now not explainable, so much it is profound. Whatever explainable is bullshit. It's not here and now. So therefore in the Mahayana tradition it says, the eternal Tao, no, whatever you can explain is not the eternal Tao. Eternal Tao is here and now, you can't explain. But you can let others experience and you can understand experience to experience without words. So when and where you sit and comfortably experiencing just being, just sitting, and try to see, may not be only these three, there may be a lot of other criterions. I can feel I am not dead. I can experience I am not sleeping. I can experience I am not unconscious. And that very experience, if you keep on continue, I would say you are enlightened. If you can continue with that idea, that is what you call the enlightenment. But you can introduce how difficult it is to keep for split second to the split second continuity. It is not easy. So it is not your fault, it's a humanity. So you to understand, this is there, instead of the mingling with the whole past and the future, other people, other places also, it's the default, and instead go there, and when you are fighting, one day you may experience continuity of thought moments, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like, be here and now, then you can feel the pyramid-like shape. You are sitting, and you know, you being, just sitting. When it is happening, imagine your attention or your knowledge going to the upper part of the body is the most metabolically functioning. Lower part is just anchoring. So therefore, if it is happening, you just forget about the lower part and bring the attention to the upper part. And because it is rising and falling in breath and out breath and everything is happening, then you have to understand, to bring the attention to the upper part, you have to totally forget about the lower part of your body. Not only the world, but you are forgetting about the lower part also. Now you can understand upper part. And while you are practicing, imagine one day you can feel the end of the nostrils or top of the lip. Then when you are focusing into the end of the nostril, top of the lip, not only the world, not only the lower part of your body, your whole body you have to forget about. By sacrificing, think only you can have the pinpointedness, one split second, When the out-breath happens, you feel warmth. When the in-breath happens, you feel coldness. In-breath longer, out-breath shorter, or vice versa. So when it is happening, you can see what a kind of a one-pointedness. Now you have completely forgotten the world, completely forgotten about your body, and you can there. And imagine it is continuing for 5 minutes. And there you can definitely say, when I noted in-breath, my attention was in the end of the nostril, and I feel the rubbing or gushing air with the cold. And when it's out, I feel kind comparatively warm, rubbing sensation. So, noting in-breath and out-breath, we can say applying thoughts. Explaining its nature in terms of the shapes and the color is called discursive thoughts. So therefore, unless otherwise you focus to the breath, you may be living 120 years, they say calculation, 12 millions maybe breaths are happening, not a single one you experience, if you are not mindful. You don't know how many millions you spent, how many millions are yet to come, you are not. Because your applying thought is about your mother, about your father, about your beloved one, or the son, or kind of thing, and you think it is my duty to think about my kith and kins, and ultimately while away, at the deathbed only you comes to know so much of breaths in my opening balance, not a single one I spent in terms of vitakka vichara. So therefore, it's a waste in terms of understanding the savitakka savichara samadhi. So therefore, imagine how much you have to sacrifice in order to reduce to one particular object and appreciate the very thing. It is nothing but the compassion of the Buddha. It is nothing but the essence of Dhamma. It is nothing but the Sangha. And therefore, if you can not only understand the vitakka, but sacrifice your whole present moment, mindfulness, diligence and vigilance to keep on applying thoughts to the present moment, and then not only just go there and come back, but you gather the honey, gather the pollen, and what it was like. What's the difference between in-breath and the out-breath? What's the difference between left leg and the right leg? So likewise, when it is happening, this is a kind of a discipline in our mind, and that is called one thing at a time and that done well, and reductionism. And when and where someone is going to that kind of one-pointedness, maybe a split second, maybe momentarily, he or she can really understand if any person sitting in front or side by, if he or she go to the one-pointedness, exactly the same experience. Exactly you feel what the Buddha is. Exactly you feel what is the release of the tension, what is the release of the frustration and burning and torturing. So therefore ultimately it becomes something workable, something under your very nose, something within your jurisdiction. Of course it is difficult to maintain it, but introduction and giving the introduction is kind of a religious thing. It's a kind of a spiritual thing. So applying thoughts and discursive thoughts, when it is explaining in the modern terms, Pandita Sayadaw used to say, it may be appealing to the females, yoginis and nuns. When you are doing embroidery, you have to fix the cloth into a frame. Otherwise you can't do embroidery. So what you do is fix the cloth in a round frame, and that fixing is like applying thoughts, and then you can do the embroidery work with the machine or whatever may be. So you have to fix the object at the beginning, otherwise you can't do embroidery. And he says otherwise If you are using, for example, brass vase, using in front of the Buddha, sometimes you put flowers and use it. Imagine you wish to polish it. And if you are doing it by your hand, one you have to do is to hold it hard with your left hand, and the right hand you can rub it against. You can polish it. So if it is not holding with your one hand, rubbing will not be working. So first you have to fix the object, and then you have to rub. So this is the way it is happening. When it's a lathe machine is there, you have to fix the iron, centering, and it takes a lot of time to precisely fix the iron. Then only you can cut. So likewise, each and every time you have to delimit your object or your subject, and then only you can monitor it, you can interpret terms to it. So this is what the Savitakka Savichara Samadhi. So this is when it is happening, most pragmatic thing is, most advisable thing is, apply your thoughts to a material object. That's a beginner. You can't start with immaterial object. Whenever you apply to an immaterial object, you don't know whether it is imaginary thing or reality, you can't verify. So the great understanding of the Buddha is, first use the Kaya Anupassana, materiality, and apply your thoughts to the materiality and see its shape, the manner, natural characteristics, and do one thing at a time. So when it is happening, only the breath come into being, or your bodily posture come into being. So whenever you apply your own body, your own corporeality, very difficult, because you are usually hating your body. That is the natural situation. So when and where you apply your mind to the body, it's always about to jump. Never happy. So first and foremost thing you will understand is, it is not impossible thing, but you don't know how the mind is jumping out. That is because kind of a hate. That is why it says at the opening balance, sit very comfortably, make it very symmetrical, and relax. Don't apply any kind of a volitional thing, just let the body to relax and be aware, you are just being. So it easily one can interpret it, this is the beginning of vipassana, or this is the beginning of mindfulness, or this is the beginning of the things, see things as they are. On top of that, it's a beginning of metta bhavana. It's a beginning of loving kindness, because you love your body. You make yourself the best. And I know when I make this statement, I may be criticized. But lay people are very somewhat skillful to keep the body as an object. But the mendicants, ordained people, are the great haters of their own body. They hate. Their profession is hating their body. That is what we call the ordained people. So therefore, when some people go to the talks of Rajneesh, the Osho, he has a big audience and he can sit there. If you are a clergy, or if you are a monk, or if you are a nun, there is a small cage. He says, go to that, because you are recognizing yourself as a monk or a nun or a clergy, and that cage is labeled as asylum. So before becoming a monk, there was a very senior Italian monk, French monk, and he told, you are going to become a monk. You know how much hateful life you are going to live in future? Then I told, I don't hate myself, I love my body. No, after becoming ordained, you are professionally hating your body. That is self-torturing. And before the enlightenment, Buddha had 6 years. 6 years torturing. Everyone was facing. He is such an ardent practitioner. So in the the Dhammasangani is one of the Abhidhamma book. It says normal commoners, they get stuck in the samsara, or it is perpetual suffering due to desire. But the meditators, or the monks, or the nuns, they get stuck due to the hatred. Soon you become a precept holder. You start hating yourself. So Mahasi Sayadaw is talking on the precepts in the first 2 chapters. Now it is translated. He says, the very difficult to gain something after you become a monk. Often it works negative. Because your precepts become a blinker's light. Whenever it is broken, you are more agitated than the normal person, because you assumed a lot of precepts and very nuanced and tiny things are there. You don't know what you are supposed to protect. And whenever it happens, the suspicion happens. So therefore, sitting comfortably and accepting this comfortable posture and be with that posture itself is a challenge. So I met one monk in Kanduboda. He American soldier gone to the Vietnam War and has killed innocent people because they are Vietnamese. They killed Vietnam people in the Vietnam ground because they are Vietnamese. So ultimately he was really suffering, but he was internally a very soft person. So later he has gone to Zen monastery in USA, and the teacher asked him to close your eyes and sit comfortably and love your body. He start crying 3 days continuously. He can't look at his body. He can't be with his body. He says overwhelmingly he is crying. Then the master has mentioned, it's very good, it's a kind of a catharsis. Let that crying happen. So this is the way the hate is working. So therefore, sitting comfortably and applying your mind, or vitakka, going to your sitting posture, it's a grave challenge. When you are walking, just walking on the Mother Earth, it's a great challenge. That's why people are inventing helicopters. That's why people are inventing planes, drones, and going up there. But they don't know how to walk on the ground. Such simple thing has become so abnormal today. So just love your body. And it is the opening to the mindfulness as well as the loving kindness. So Upanishad Sayadaw used to say, if you are not loving your body, if you have not experienced it, never one can expect the love to other person. Never. It's just cheating. So therefore, love your body. Sit comfortably. Be aware, I'm applying thought is with my sitting posture, and try to experience it and report it. It's an unbiased kind of a report. When I sit, this is what it happened. And easily you can understand when you are walking, how do you experience not sitting, not standing, not lying down, I'm walking. And that explanation is called the pondering mind or discursive thoughts. And when it is happening, if you are sharp enough, I am telling again, if you are sharp enough, if you apply the in-breath to out-breath, there's a difference. When the mind is aligned with the in-breath, if you know and if you can feel the shape and the manner, and then you can see out-breath is maybe vice versa, contradictory. But later, when and where the applying thoughts become sharp, not only you can see the difference between the in-breath and out-breath, you can see clearly in-breath to in-breath differences, out-breath to out-breath difference, one to one. So closely changing, evolving, You earlier think in-breath is the in-breath, out-breath is the out-breath. No. In-breath to in-breath is changing, that is the evolution. And when and where you look in-breath to in-breath change, only you can see the changing nature, impermanent nature, evolving nature, metamorphosis. But our mind is so in a phobia to observe the change in-breath to in-breath, change in out-breath to out-breath, change in one left leg to left leg, right leg to right leg. So much so it is changing, so ultimately you consider it as a challenge. You see that I can't explain the in-breath because first thing is not like the second thing. Second thing is not like the third thing. Third thing is not like the fourth thing. It's a great achievement in meditation. Because your pondering mind says, discursive mind says, even you apply to the same object, change in the facets, change in the shape, change in the manner, change in the nature. So we can see how much we are with the permanent notion. That is the point where egotistic idea can establish. Egotistic idea can get well rooted. So if you apply, if you know the applying thoughts are the discursive thoughts, and if it's when you efficient, the Westerners it is called thin slicing of time. So sharp in the mindfulness, then you can say in-breath to in-breath changes are there. Out-breath to out-breath changes are there. Left leg to left leg, right leg to right leg. And it is being further cut into slices. The beginning of the in-breath is not like the middle of the in-breath. Middle of the in-breath is not like the end of the in-breath. So ultimately it is going into such a sharpness, so much so you completely forget about the world. Completely you cut off from the world. Moment you sharpen your applying thoughts, at the beginning it's a gross area, ultimately when it becomes thin slicing of time, go sharper. More you ponder, more you penetrate into, more you plunge into, you don't know even the thundering happens. You don't know whatever it happens because mind is going. So we can't expect that kind of thing in the first day, second day in our retreat specifically for the beginner. But easily with that can be proved. Even if you are not a meditator, when your eye is utterly engaged in seeing, your ear is not working. Those two things cannot be happen. You are not a meditator, but whenever you utterly observe something, your eye, the sound waves come and strike on your ear, null and void. Smells come, null and void. The taste, the touch, everything. So sometimes people are utterly engaged in chess games. So attentive, they don't know. 6 hours gone. What happened? And they may be utterly engaged in card games and they don't know. It's a time for the lunch or the dinner. Those things are passing. So likewise, the attention they have given is not a neutral object. It is not a pure object, but instead the Buddha says, what one thing at a time is a norm in your mind. So therefore that particular thing, be it an appointed one, your body. Appointed one, the breath. Appointed one, left leg, right leg. And when you keep on, there's a kind of a sharpening, there's a kind of a alignment, there's a kind of a precision. Ultimately it penetrates into the object. When it is happening, your outer understanding, everything is disappearing because it is plunging. So this is a kind of a protection. So the norm come into being. When you protect mindfulness, mindfulness protect you. You have to be mindful on the particular object and apply again and again. Ultimately it start plunging in, penetrating in. Once you go there, your mind or stream of consciousness is utterly pure. And still you know you have to go further. When you go deep, maybe jhanic experiences or vipassana concentration can happen. Vipassana concentration is called momentary concentration. But the jhanic experience is a chunk. It's going to the particular object or particular sign of the object, and you absorb, get into, or it is like magnetizing effect. So you can be there for assigned time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, like you can assign. But in Vipassana meditation, it is momentary, and even the object is changing, still the mindfulness can continue. That is the secret between Samatha Samadhi and Vipassana Samadhi. Samatha Samadhi, object is a fixed one, and it's a convention. It is not an experienceable one. But the Vipassana is something you can experience, ever changing, but even then, it is like a shooting into a jumping animal, not like a target shooting. So when that happens, you see, it is only possible for human beings. It is not a natural thing. You have to train. You have to sacrifice. That means you have to close your eyes. You have to go to a silent place. You have to make a determination. Don't entertain smells, taste, but fully vigilant, fully diligent, and be aware of your body as and when it happens. So at that time, your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, voluntarily you close. And the bodily tactile sensation become amplified, and out of that also, first you be happy with the whatever may be the bodily sensation, just being, and later you can direct it according to the prominence of the object. Don't appoint it, let the object happen, and then when it go there, and ultimately penetration start, when it is happening, without adverting of the mind, you can taste the object. That is the second part of this concentration. Avitakka savicharamattan samadhi. You are not noting it, but automatically mind is naturally going to the breath. In the walking also, at the beginning you say left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg. Ultimately you feel like autopiloting, the body is walking, and you know you are not sitting, you are not standing, you are not lying, and then without noting you gather the information, the nature, the shape, the manner, and they are without noting. This is the second part of or advancement of the samadhi. So it is only for the people, those who have done the groundworks, the preliminary part, ultimately they gain kind of a familiarity with the breath. Soon you sit down, 1 or 2 in-breath, out-breath, and then naturally mind is friendly with your body, friendly with your in-breath and out-breath, magnetizing, and soon you go there, the breath becomes very subtle, and you go to a kind of a concentration without much of noting, without much of labeling, because of your familiarity with the breath. So that part, the familiarization part is a demanding area. You must know the technique. Again and again reductionism, thin slicing of time, repetitive application, lot of energy. But once that momentum gathered, acceleration happened, then the mind develop kind of familiarity. Even without noting, it can go into the object, and that is because of your early investment. So that when it happens, it's amazingly, very quickly once you sit, specifically in a familiar place, easily you feel at home. You feel you are naturally with your body, and that don't expect as a magic. It is not a mystical thing due to the early part of your training, but that early part or this familiarization part you can't do at the deathbed. You can't do once you become very old. You can't do when you become sick. But the thing is, if you are young, if you are not sick, and if you are not old age, your main principle is pleasure principle. You never go to the meditation. After becoming too old only, you feel like going to meditation and become spiritual, but that by the time your faculties are not strong enough. So therefore, more earlier the better kind of a principle, but the vicious cycle never allowed that to happen. So when I heard about, not on such detail, but the mindfulness, I was about 26, 27 years old, so I secretly try my best, without showing anyone, be mindful. It took 8 years. You people are very efficient in that sense. You are expecting that to happen in 8 days maybe. And some people are successful. In my case, 8 years. Because there are no meditation centers. There were no walking paths. There were no groups like that. There were no teachers like that. But I had, luckily, one teacher is always available for me, and while practicing, I found when and where the mind is here and now, kind of a relief. Kind of a door opening is there. So, I had 3 principles at that time. Never tell anyone that I am meditating. Because whether you are mindful or not, it doesn't matter for others. And never marry. No idea about the better half of your life. And don't do a job. Because job is a kind of addiction, workaholism, and money is provoking you. And if you are an efficient person, definitely. So, of course, after the 6-7 years, I started a job. But till that, I found this is more you keep it secret, the faster the growth. Whenever you are going to assume you as a meditator, that will become a blockage. Because you have to assume now, in front of others' eyes, and that become a friction. So, I would like to share this experience with the younger generation. If you are trying to be mindful, don't let your parents know that is because it's the biggest block that you are meditating. If you are a girl, you are just like a glassware in a glassware shop. After selling, they don't care. Till it's sold, they are washing and cleaning and all the kind of thing. Girls are married daughter, split water. That is the attitude of the parents. Until now you people are parents. You are doing the same bad thing to your children. But the mindfulness, more you do it in a solitude way, unexpressed way, it's like a hobby. But definitely at the beginning you don't know what is the applying thought, you don't know what is the discursive thoughts. When you are practicing only, you comes to know and then you know how to label it. This is what you call vitakka. This is what you call the vichara. Imagine one day you understand vitakka, the applying thoughts, noting. Ultimately that become addiction. Even when the mind is running efficiently, that easily can run without noting, but if you are addicted, under such circumstances also, you try to note it, and then you never meditation go to the avitakka savichara samadhi because you are addiction to noting. So therefore you have to understand vitakka is a tool. It is not the nibbana. You are using the tool as much as it is useful. And when and where the service is served, purpose is served, you must let it drop. For example, when and where you start the car, to move the car you have to apply the gear into the first gear. And when the car is moving, you have to shift into the second gear, and there you have to forego the first gear. So when to go for the first gear to the second gear, do you think it is possible to write technical writing? It depends on the ramp, whether it's climbing up or climbing down. It depends on the weight of the load you have. It depends on the engine capacity. So by driving only you have to understand when to put into the second gear. Engineers, therefore, very poor drivers. They are calculating first to the second in the engineering way. They are the people doing a lot of road accidents. But the normal drivers, they do not know beyond the dashboard. They are very good drivers. So likewise, innocent people understand the vitakka vichara samadhi and avitakka savichara samadhi. Don't ask technical questions. You must understand when and where nodding. Sometimes the mind can go, meditation can go, mindfulness can go, diligence can go, and there you have to release and see. In my jargon, I would say, put into autopiloting, and if you see, if the machine is running, let that happen. And there, lesser exerting of energy, more concentration can happen. So, as far as it is necessary, you have to use the vitakka, or applying thoughts, or naming, or labeling. When and where the meditation start to gather the momentum, and it will hint you, if you are sharp enough, now one word not necessary call by name. Just be aware. When it is happening, if you are skillful to go from the vitakka vichara samadhi or savitakka savichara samadhi to the avitakka vicharamata samadhi, it's a kind of a sharpness, I would say, in the language. You have to use the language in such a way. Of course, it has a practical value. So, vitakka, it is like the first gear, just to get the movement of your junk iron machine. And once it is in the momentum, you must go shift into the higher gear. And when to shift? Always the beginner is doing mistakes. After doing so much of trial and error only, he or she will understand. And if someone to help, if someone to give a proper advice, best thing is you must report what is happening as it is happening, rather than your interpretation. Rather than your adjusting the report, just explaining as it is happening, and it never happens in an automatic way. By trial and error it is happening. So when I was in Panditarama, daily when I go for interviews, the Sayadaw is not happy. Always he says, I can't understand what you are talking about. But anyway, I never give up. And one day a Vietnamese monk came and told, I see, you are meditating, but please let the Sayadaw knows what is the subject you are talking about, what is the object of you are talking about, and tell whether you noted it or not, and tell what did you come to know. So I thought that is physics. Experiment? No. Experiment, and what did you observe, and what is your inference? That's the 3 columns we write in the physics. So I never go to Burma to learn physics. But he never answer, he never accept the report unless otherwise you put into that format. And after 18 months or more, then only I thought I have to surrender. I have to talk in his language. Then one would easily understand it, and then I feel the communication takes place. So therefore it's a kind of a surrendering. Again I am telling, this is not the only method I am prescribing. Maha system is the only system, or this interview is the only method. But if you feel any kind of a blockage, any kind of a roaming in the same place, take care just to explain what is happening. Under this situation, name the object, tell whether you noted it or not, and tell what did you comes to know. And after a while, noting may be not necessary. So when it happening, if you can report it, that's a great communication skillfulness. Otherwise you can't go further. You are always mixed up. So therefore, sharpening happens to the vitakka vichara, but don't think it is leading you up to the highest gain. No, it is halfway, it is dropping, just like a Saturn V rocket. when it is going to the moon, the rockets, whichever may be burned, they have to drop. Only the shuttle is going to the moon. So everything used and drop, used and drop. Likewise, utility value is there. So this, if you have already developed skillfulness in your life, professional thing, you may see it is applicable not only to meditation, for everything. So use them as a tool. Don't think as the end. It's just a means. So when it is happening, vitakka vichara is very useful the tools, but don't get attracted into that. And interview reports, and when you are writing, read your report again. Read it from the listener's point of view. Otherwise you may write thinking that listener is from my standpoint. No, listener is completely outside person. You have to tell to the short, to the point, and then the communication takes place. And not only it is communication between two people, it's the communication between the left hemisphere of your brain and the right hemisphere of your brain. Or we can see the brain and the heart. Never talk. They never communicate. Your brain is over-functioning, heart is neglected. And your left side is over-functioning, right side of your brain is brand new. Even if you live 120 years. Because our left side is very domineering, very rational, very aggressive. Never allow the right side to come. So more you self-torturing, more you abiding by rules and formulas and all the kind of thing, you are always over-functioning of your left side of the brain, so headaches happen, giddiness can happen, all the kind of thing happen. So right side of the brain is giggling and waiting, what a fool, not giving any fair chance, or you never give any chance to the heart. You are talking only with the brain, so you are very barren, not fertile. Not that fertility is not available, your biased approach. So therefore, applying thought must have equal, or it's called choiceless awareness, or evenly suspended attention. Just report what is happening. It's so difficult because of our crafty mind. So understanding that, not only in meditation, let everything happen. Don't discriminate, just understand. Don't welcome, don't throw away. And if you can write it, as and when it is happening, you feel released. Because you are not twisting the knowledge, you are not bending the truth. So it's very difficult thing for the crooked mind. But for the innocent mind, very easy, and then and there you start to feel the relaxation, a lack of frustration. Of course, it is maybe one split second. A lot of other imbalanced thought moments and the discouragement can happen. Never mind. Specialize on whatever the thing, whenever the energy and the mindfulness align, and then you can easily explain what is coming in avenue with, what is focused with, and that is the point, the confidence, or the determination power, or what you call the mind power, going and gather the momentum. So therefore, today also I spent another more than 1 hour just to understand and explain about the applying thought and discursive thoughts. So it is the preliminary part of these 3 kinds of samadhi, and I hope tomorrow we can go into the next samadhi Venerable Sariputta is explaining. So beginners as well as the senior meditators, just try as much as possible your interview reports and make it true to type and simple without much of filtering, adjusting and editing. And more you go there, your innocence will come, and you are the first person to get the benefit then and there. So with that remark, I would like to sum up the talk today. Thank you very much for listening.